So thanks for letting us do some geo-accounting, and like an accountant, your accountant doesn't care if you buy a boat, right? Your accountant cares if you can afford a boat. So make your choices. This is your community. Do the math on this stuff. We just put numbers on a map so you could see them. I mean, seriously, this isn't magic. It's just using software. And the software is stuff that you all have. So what I want to advocate for is that change the way that you do government. We operate government like the old rotary phone, and we have new technology now that we could use better. So just do that. And if you ever want to read anything about how we do our work, it's frequently covered in Strong Towns. I'd recommend following it or reading this book. And thanks for letting me do some math. Do you have any questions? You want to do questions? Yeah, I have time for questions. And also, like I said, this is videotaped in the back, and we'll have a PDF copy of that whole presentation.
The biggest thing we're always going to hear in our community, like whenever any type of density and anything comes up, is traffic. So how do you bring in, like, it seems like downtown is very popular right now because it's a walkable space. So in your calculations, in your consulting, how do you consult, like, e-bikes are very popular, bike lanes, everything like that, like getting away from cars?
Well, if you can increase walkability and increase trips, and the thing is, like, for particularly out in the suburban areas, making sure that the blocks are walkable, making sure that there's walking infrastructure and that you don't get run over if you're on a bicycle. You know, because that's kind of, the downtown was sort of like old school walkability, right? So learn from downtown and just replicate that. And then that trip, you know, a car consumes about 350 square feet of space. And that's something that you're going to buy down when you buy down that automobile infrastructure. And this isn't to say no one should have cars. I'm not going to say that. I drive, you know, but you have to be mindful of that exchange. So the mall is incredibly easy to park in compared to downtown, but you bought all that surface space for asphalt, for parking lots, and that's a trade-off. So you lost money there. So I just talk about, not everybody needs to go out and bicycle. I bicycle and walk to work. But that's not for everybody, but making sure that you're not sacrificing the walkability so that it's so easy to drive around. Because when you do that, it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. More people will drive, and then you're in traffic. So that's the irony of it all. Adding a lane doesn't solve traffic congestion. You know, it's like fighting obesity by buying bigger clothes. You know, it feels good for a little bit, but then you're back in traffic again. And again, remember, because of your state policies, you have an incentive to want to add more and more people in the state. Right? So make sure you can accommodate it or change the state policy.
We've seen other communities that have amenities that we don't have. For instance, rail to trail or athletic facilities, baseball, minor league, that sort of thing. What do those look like when you start with them? Do they look like a Walmart, or do they look like our downtown?
Well, it depends. I mean, rails to trail is non-taxable. A baseball stadium is generally non-taxable. We have a baseball stadium in my city that costs us money. So it's more of a value statement, whether or not you want that. I'm trying to think, if you go over to Abacoa, it's Jupiter, has a big facility of spring training stuff. You have examples that you can go around and see them, and just, I think actually Abacoa is probably a good one because they built a little village with the baseball facilities. Now, I would think that if they had a do-over on that, they probably wouldn't do all the baseball fields together the way that they did, because it becomes a big barrier to the neighborhoods. It's kind of too much of stuff in one place. Like, one baseball stadium is good, but when you put 20 of them together, it's insane. So to walk home is kind of a burden over there. But it's just, you know, keeping it in balance. You know, this building's non-taxable, right? This is a public facility. But there's a trade-off. You can utilize this for community benefit. I would go look at Bentonville, Arkansas, and Rogers, right next door, have been doing a spectacular job with their greenways and bikeways and bicycle infrastructure. They build about a mile a week of bicycle infrastructure, which is kind of insane. They utilize it through easements and properties, but having a bike network, you could really see what the economic impact is in their community. Because you go into downtown, there's bicycles everywhere, which is great, because how many bicycles can you fit in 350 square feet? You can fit like 40 bicycles in the space of one car. So that means 40 people eating cheeseburgers after they've done their bicycling. Put the fat back on. Anyone else? Was this too nerdy? I know it was a lot for the evening.
I work with our CRAs. I'm just kind of curious about what are some of the ways you've seen people use CRAs differently to bring landlord or city into their space.
Every CRA, so the question is how have people used their CRAs to bring...
Maybe even what are some of the most innovative things you've seen? You talk about people who are just tearing houses down for life. I'm curious.
The most innovative CRAs, well, the Gainesville one's doing some amazing stuff. We've seen folks do public wealth funds, which are pretty innovative, where they treat like the public land as a platform, and they don't just sell it off. They rent it out to a cooperative developer. The community land trusts are good ones. Atlanta's got some really good community land trusts that are doing some amazing things. They tend to be complicated for people because it sounds weird. Community land trust, what does that mean? But basically it's putting your land into a public purse and controlling the land in perpetuity. And there are developers that will work with you as a cooperative investor. Go back to that word corporation. You know, it's like it's your asset. You've already done all the infrastructure around it. So bring that asset to the table with a partner and say, if you win, we all win together. At an extreme level in Copenhagen, in Europe, they did a partner profit sharing with this big wharf redevelopment that they did. And the whole development had to be green and didn't consume any extra infrastructure or energy or anything like that. And it's got a little university on it. It's kind of wild. So there are some more, again, going back to that first slide of going and finding a grandma or grandpa, you can find some of those communities out there that they're pushing the limits with stuff like that. Are we all good? Well, thank you.